Can you address corruption in your thoughts? What can we do about election fraud? There's so many areas. I'll let you go from there.
The fundamental problem with corruption is accounting for the resources that our federal government has. We have a history of merely appropriating funds. We need to start allocating funds. The difference between appropriating and allocating is allocating recognizes that we have scarce resources and that sometimes we have to say no. And the reality is today that we need to say no more often. If we're going to essentially start rooting out fraud, we have to have accountability for the resources that have been allocated, not appropriated, allocated. And I think that that's a fundamental principle. The other thing I think that is very interesting is people most often, not always, but people most often do what they're incentivized to do. And essentially we've created loopholes and systems and opportunities for people to take advantage of the system because we've incentivized it. We've told them. Everybody here has seen the commercials late at night where you can get a book to exploit the federal government for all kinds of resources, right? You guys have all seen them. Okay? The reason why people are selling those is because there's something to it. Right? There's something to it. Again, back to the basic principle, we have to allocate and we have to provide accountability for the resources that are distributed. I think one other comment here I think that is important that goes along with this. I think that in Washington, D.C., one of the problems that we have is Congress has delegated too much authority fundamentally to whether it's agencies or whether it's czars or whether it's just unknown bureaucrats. They've delegated the responsibility and the authority that is the responsibility and authority of Congress. And we have to take that back. We have to take ownership and we have to be responsible. We can't pass the buck any longer in Congress.
Most of you remember John F. Kennedy's statement, "Ask not what you can do for your country." Right? I'm going to take that, sorry, I can mess it up, didn't I? Ask not what your country can do for you. I want to take that a step further. I want to ask you to accept with me the blame for the corruption that exists in Washington, D.C. right now. It is our fault. Neil touched on two principles that are perfectly true: accountability and transparency. They exist to a degree sufficient for you and I to call home all those who are corrupt in Washington, D.C. But we have not done it. The question is why? Why have we not stepped up and called them home? Having said that, we also need to engage now, and clearly you are. We need to send people back to Washington, D.C. who will slowly move the ball down the field, fighting corruption as they can. It is the incremental approach. We also need the guys who can catch the Hail Mary when it's thrown, chop the head off the dragon. We don't really need reform coming from our politicians. If we keep waiting for them to give it to us, we will continue to fail. You and I need to step up and begin to call every single person home from Washington, D.C. who does not fight the corruption continuously, in an ongoing manner, every year. That's the answer. You are the answer. Your political engagement, the price of freedom, is eternal vigilance. And we as a nation have not shown it. I think we're starting.
Okay, 1 minute question here, but before I start, what time have we got here? 7:50. Okay, we need to be out. Okay, we've got. I was also informed that we have a Senate candidate here, and potentially two, but we're going to give them 2 minutes as well at the end. So I just need to adjust my time for that. Okay, this is a 1 minute quick question, and we'll start with you, Morgan. How do you stand on the Second Amendment?
As a legislator, I sponsored a bill about conceal and carry, challenging the notion that we as a state have the right to charge you to exercise your Second Amendment right. We've changed the very dynamic of unalienable rights and rights contained under the Bill of Rights. They are not rights as our founding fathers knew them anymore. And I've recognized that for a long time. We've got to go back to the notion where things like the Second Amendment mean you as law-abiding citizens have the right to own a gun, plain and simple. They can't tax your ammo so that you can't buy it anymore. They can't tax your gun so that you can't buy it anymore. And they can't charge you fees to go out and exercise that right in the name of a public good if you are a law-abiding citizen.
If you have any question about what I think about the Second Amendment, you've never been to the ranch with us and shot Annie Oakley. You just never have. We have to protect our Second Amendment right. There's an interesting battle going on right now that is a distortion of principle. The federal government, there was a handgun ban in Washington, D.C. that was turned over as unconstitutional because it violated the Second Amendment. We have an interesting battle going on right now in the state of Illinois where the state of Illinois is trying to use states' rights to take away Second Amendment rights. That's an invalid use of the principle of states' rights. We have to protect the right to bear arms, and I think that beyond just taxing those, whether it's ammunition or guns, the other thing is marking them and tying them to private citizens and this formal registration process that's being pursued simultaneously.